Hey everybody, thank you so much for being here. I'm Peppa, you may know me as Pepallama, and I'm here to guide and inspire you to curate a life that is a work of art. I'm going to start sharing some of my blog posts that have been posted on my website, which is pepallama.com. And my intention for sharing them in this video format is that I understand that staring at a screen and reading might not be your favorite way of learning. I know it certainly isn't mine. And something that I teach and thoroughly believe in is that we need to balance analog and digital in this modern world. And one of the best ways to do that is to get off the screen, to stop scrolling, to stop being in the digital space so much and be a little more present and mindful in analog practices. And I understand that there's a lot of irony in me sitting here in an overwater cabin in Panama using a digital tool to communicate with you no matter where you are in the world while I'm telling you about analog practice. But it's about balance. I'm not saying digital's terrible and you can't do it and analog's the only way, because that's not realistic or sustainable in modern life. I'm just saying this as something about being mindful and understanding that we do need to balance analog with digital, especially in this modern world. So listening to what I have to say rather than sitting in front of a screen and reading it is the intention behind me making these recordings. And in doing so, I invite you to be present and be mindful as you're listening. And what does that mean? Well, you can sit somewhere in purposeful, just quiet, contemplative stillness as you listen to this in your own home. Just be present, listen and see what comes up. You could also put on your headphones, go for a walk in nature, be inspired by the natural world as you're listening to what I have to say. Or you might want to grab your creative tools, whatever that is. Perhaps you've got some paintbrushes, you've got some pens and pencils, you want to draw, you want to make something as you're listening. I invite you to have a little bit of mindfulness and presence and analog practice as you're listening. So let's jump into today's blog post, which originally was posted in January, and it's called Relax to Create, Unlocking Creativity Through Theta Brainwaves. As someone who's deeply invested in both creativity and wellness, I've come to understand that inspiration isn't something we can force. It's something that flows when we create the right environment for it. And I want to give a little bit of context about that opening sentence as well, because there's a lot of meaning in it for me. So when I say that I'm invested in creativity and wellness, those are two of my 5 core values, and that's how I live, guide, and create. And I really encourage you to do the exercise for yourself and figure out what your 5 core values are, because they're so beneficial for every aspect of your life. When you're in alignment with your values and you're creating a life that reflects them, your creativity is going to flow much more authentically and much more easily when you're living in that aligned place. So I encourage you to go and do that exercise for yourself, uncovering your 5 core beliefs, and 2 of my 5 are creativity and wellness. And I also want to touch on the fact here that I've said it's not something we can force, it's something that flows. And that's a very Taoist principle. And obviously Taoism is the foundation for my Curate a Life that is a work of art philosophy. The Tao is all about being in flow with what is. And when we're in a flow state, things flow naturally, including our creativity. It's not something that we want to force. And also I've said here, creating the right environment is really important. And that's one of the 4 pillars with my holistic approach to creativity. And when I say holistic, I'm incorporating your mind, body, soul, and environment for creative living and for creative wellness. So that opening sentence, there's a lot of information there, but for me, it's also letting you know that it's really, really important to understand what are your 5 core values, and are you living in alignment with those and creating the life that you want to live? Do you understand the concept of Taoism, that we want to be in flow rather than a forcing state? And do we understand that creating the right environment is extremely important for creative living, and it's part of the holistic approach? So recently I've been diving into the science of theta brainwaves, and it's completely reshaped the way I think about creativity. So what are theta brainwaves? Well, they operate at a frequency of about 4 to 7 hertz, which occurs when the mind is deeply relaxed. This state often happens during light sleep, meditation, or moments of mindfulness. And mindfulness is just being present. In Taoist terms, this is yin. It's where intuition, emotional breakthroughs, and creative problem solving naturally emerge. What really stood out to me is how easy it is to access this state with just 15 minutes of intentional relaxation every day. 15 minutes, and that's just 1% of your day. And this may be one of my all-time favorite facts. 15 minutes of your day is just 1%. I want you to sit and think about that for a minute. 1% of your day, 15 minutes. So over time, these small, consistent moments of relaxation can create a profound ripple effect, not just in your creativity, but in the way you approach your entire life, which, when you're the artist of your life, and life is art, art is life, that is going to be your natural way of being. So what is the connection between relaxation and creativity? So we live in a society that glorifies hustle and productivity. And in Taoist terms, that is the yang. If you're hustling and you're productive and you've got a lot of output, that's a yang state. And often being in that state makes creativity feel like something that you have to force. But the truth is, creativity thrives in stillness, or in yin. So when we slow down, different parts of the brain begin to work together in harmony, and they unlock ideas and solutions that almost feel effortless. And I love how Dr. Greg Wells describes this in his talk, Creativity, Innovation, and Theta Brainwaves. And I'll put the link for that below, and I'll put a link for Dr. Greg Wells also. He's a scientist and a psychologist, and his work on the theta brainwave state, especially as it relates to creativity, is really, really profound, and it actually inspired me to write this post. So I'll share those links with you so that you can do your own self-study on this. When we make time for rest and stillness, which is yin, we're giving our brain the space it needs to create. So how do I tap into the theta state? The thing is, I've always been aware of this state as I effortlessly drop into it through my creative practices, such as painting, walking barefoot in nature, journaling, sitting in the ocean on my surfboard, or even riding my horse. When I'm in these flow states, especially when I'm painting a large-scale mural, it's almost like a meditation. I'm so in the flow of what I'm doing. I'm so in the flow of the wall. I'm so in the flow of my movement, of my hand, of my brushstrokes, of everything. I'm in this state. And until I watched this talk by Dr. Greg Wells and started reading about this, I didn't actually know that there was a scientific name for this, and this was actually based in science. And for me, that kind of changed everything. I started applying this mindfully, and this understanding, I put it into my own life and into my own practice. And I'll share here with you below what works for me to get into this state, and hopefully this will inspire you as well. So number one is understanding that, just 15 minutes, 1% of your day is all you need to start to set aside the time to be in this creative stillness state. And you can do that by setting up a journaling practice in your morning as part of your morning routine. I've made this a habit for more than 15 years, and I dedicate at least 15 minutes in the morning to mindfulness through stillness and journaling. For me, this means reading a daily passage from 365 Tao by Deng Ming Dao, sitting quietly with my thoughts, and journaling about it. These short moments of calm help me reset and often lead to surprising bursts of creative clarity and inspiration. And I did start a book club about this exact practice. It's called the 365 Tao Book Club. You can join. It's a subscription on my Instagram page, and I invite you to be part of the community and incorporate just 15 minutes of your day in the morning into an intentional morning routine that's based in analog practice to help you get into this creative flow state. Another way you can do it is through mindful movement. Gentle, repetitive movements like walking by the ocean or creating something by hand, which is, getting into that analog state. You can do that through painting, writing, or drawing. It helps to quiet the noise in your mind. There's something about a physical rhythm that naturally brings you into a flow state where creativity just happens. And that kind of goes back to that first sentence. We want to set ourselves up to be in a state, to put ourselves in the environment where creativity flows. We don't need to force it. Another way to do this is through unstructured creative play. And for me, I'm a commission-based artist, and that means the majority of my projects are a creative vision that I'm executing for somebody else. I'm creating something for a client. I'm not necessarily creating it for me. So in order to balance that very structured approach to creating, I give myself permission to just create without any specific goal. You know, I'll set up all of my creative tools, paints, watercolors, pencils, charcoal, whatever I've got on hand, and I'll just start making marks. I'll start doodling, I'll start sketching, I'll start just creating things with no expectation of the outcome. I don't sit and think that I'm going to create something gallery worthy or some incredible masterpiece. No, I'm just creating for the sake of creating. And just being in that state, putting yourself into that relaxation state, giving yourself the space to just be and create for the sake of creating will have beautiful results for your creativity. Something else is the positive impact of sound and vibration if you want to get into this state. I've recently become very aware of the influence of sound to help me access a theta state. And I've been attending sound healing sessions with crystal singing bowls that are tuned to 432 hertz, which is the natural attunement of the earth. When you meditate with the assistance of these vibrational sounds and these singing bowls, it's an absolutely profound experience. And right now I'm low-key kind of addicted to it. It's incredible. So when you meditate with the assistance of sound and vibration, it's just such a game changer. And I really encourage you, if you haven't tried sound healing yet, I invite you to do so if it's available wherever you are in your geographic location. You can also probably look online and find some on YouTube, which probably won't give you the same results as actually doing it in person, because the vibration of these bowls and that energy and that frequency that they emit is such an important part of the practice. But even just to listen to the sound that these crystal singing bowls make, it automatically puts your system, it down-regulates your nervous system, it puts you in a relaxed state, and it's just a really beautiful way of being. So I invite you to do that as well. Perhaps even here on YouTube, just look quickly for a search for crystal singing bowls, sound healing, something like that, and play those sounds and then create something as you're doing it. Write in your journal, do some doodling, do some painting while you're listening to that tuned frequency, especially if you can tune it to 432, if you search for one that's at 432, to get yourself in that natural attuned state, and just see how your body, your system just goes down, regulates, and gets yourself into a creative, relaxed state, and then create from there and see what happens. Something else that's really important is to remember that this is a consistent practice that you will build over time. So 15 minutes might not seem like a lot, but when you compound that over weeks and months and even years, the impact of that is going to be very, very obvious. It's like building a muscle, it's like going to the gym. Like every single day that you train, that effort is going to compound over time. And if you're in any way mathematically inclined, you understand the impact of compounding interest. When you do little things each day, when you commit to that practice, when you have a routine, when you make it a habit, when you do it every day, you are compounding upon that every single day, and you're going to see results. So instead of pushing harder or trying to force your way into inspiration, which is very yang, and that's a very easy mindset to be in this modern world, I invite you to lean into relaxation and lean into yin to get yourself into this creative way of being. Creativity isn't something that we have to force. It's something that emerges when we give ourselves the space to simply be. And I often say that we are human beings. We're not human doings. And you do need to give yourself the time and the space and the permission to just be. And I understand that a lot of us have a lot of guilt or a lot of shame or a lot of external opinions around taking time out to rest. A lot of us may have internalized the concept that that's us being lazy and we should be up and doing something and being productive and hustling, and that just is not true. I invite you to let go of any strange thoughts that you may have about relaxing, any guilt that you may attach to it, and just allow yourself to relax. Allow yourself to be. Allow yourself to down-regulate your system, breathe, be present, and see what creativity rises from that place. And I invite you to think, what would life look like if you dedicated just 1% of your day, just 15 minutes to doing exactly that? To be still, to be relaxed, and have that space to be creative. To be in yin. I've seen firsthand how this small habit can transform not just your creativity, but your overall sense of balance and clarity. And that's what we really want. For me, the answer has been simple. Relax to create, and don't feel guilty about it. Do not ever feel guilty about relaxing and resting. Yin is so important in this yang-dominated world. It's nothing to feel guilty about, and we all need it. It's a lesson I'm committed to carrying forward every single day, and I hope I've inspired you to do so as well as you curate a life that is a work of art. So that's my blog post about getting into this theta brainwave state. As I said, I will include the links below if you want to do your own self-study. I really encourage you to do that. Even if you just watch Dr. Greg Wells' video here on YouTube, as he explains it from a scientific and a psychological standpoint about the importance of unlocking this state for your creativity, it's a real game changer, and I invite you to lean into the yin. Don't feel guilty about being in a yin state. Yin is just as necessary as yang in this world that we live in, that is very, very much a yang-dominated world where we're doing, we're hustling, we're productive, we're out and about, we're doing all the time, we're human doings. You need to balance that with being a human being, and that's all about yin. That's taking time to relax, taking time to be still, taking deep breaths, being present, down-regulating your nervous system, and see the creativity that flows when you allow yourself to be in that state. And that is where you will curate a life that is a work of art from. So thank you so much for listening. I hope I've inspired you with what I've said here. I invite you to check out my website and my socials. I'm pepallama pretty much anywhere if you're interested in learning more. Thank you for your time. I hope that you will take some of this and do your own self-study, as I said, and really understand how you can unlock this creative state of theta brainwaves for yourself. Thank you for being here, and I will see you soon. Ciao.